Hi everyone, and welcome to the Africam show. It's me, Trishala, with you as usual. We're starting off at Stony Point with a nice look at these dassies or rock hyraxes. It's a very nice day here in Cape Town, I must say. At least it is now, and it definitely looks that way at Stony Point too. But it's still a little chilly. You can see the dassie kind of closest to us, towards the bottom, is sitting with its legs or its limbs tucked underneath it to keep it nice and warm. That's one of the best ways to conserve energy, particularly heat energy. And you would know if you're cold, what's the one thing you do if you don't have a blanket or something to keep you warm? You pull your extremities and your limbs inward to keep yourself nice and cozy. I am guilty of that very, very much, even today. As usual, we are live and interactive, which means that you can send through questions and comments. Let me know what you're up to, how you're enjoying the show. I'm always glad to listen and to hear from all of you. And I like being part of the 45 minutes that we get to spend together and escape into the African wilderness. Already we have some hellos coming through. Zygote, you say namaste, namaste to you too, Zygote. Zygote is enjoying some watermelon today. Oh, very nice, Zygote. For me, I need a few, another like 6 months before I can start enjoying watermelon again. It's just too cold, Zygote, too cold. Tris Versop is here and says, hello everybody. Hello, Tris Versop. Kauru says, hello. Hi, Kauru. Dear NC says, good morning from Seattle. You're ready with your coffee? Of course you are. April Al says, good morning everyone from sunny Connecticut with blueberry muffin in hand, and you're excited to be here. That sounds great. I am being quite Cape Townian this afternoon. I have with me, or I just finished drinking, my matcha with macadamia milk. Yes, very Cape Townian. I do drink normal milk. It's just that when I make matcha, I prefer to have nut milk. Suki V says, afternoon all, full hospital ward watching with you. Hello everyone in the hospital ward. I hope that you'll enjoy the next 45 minutes of wilderness and wildlife. And remember that you can ask anything that you like, and you can ask through Suki V if you like. Amber Co says, happy Tuesday all, and thanks to everybody bringing us together for the special show. You love sharing this time with all of you, and your coffee, of course. Amber Co, you're always so positive and so full of energy. Very unlike these dassies this afternoon. I wonder if we could just swing across to have a look at the beach. See if any of the penguins are around. If you recall, 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, we were watching and we were at the end where the cormorants are, and we saw a seal actually take one of them and thrash it around. Nice close-up of this dassie right here. Everyone's a little itchy, but that's not unusual. Many animals have a similar routine to many of us, actually. Just like we start our day by, a stretch or getting out of bed, the next thing we do is try to put something in our tummies. And when we wind down at night, the last things we do is also kind of clean up. Whoa, look at that. It has been super, super misty over the last few days, even where I am. So I live about 90 kilometers from Stony Point, this spot right here, and it's been really, really, really misty over the last few days, but it's actually not been very cold. But what I've experienced at home here is nothing compared to what's happening at Stony Point. I mean, it's 4:05 in the afternoon and totally misty. The tide has come in as well. I think high tide would have been probably about an hour ago, maybe 45 minutes ago. Would have been the peak of high tide. It'll start to pull back again. Oh yes, let's have a look there. quick look at the cormorants, and then we can head over to Tau. Remember, we'll be going across to all the different cameras, or the ones where something's happening. Here we see the white-breasted cormorant, very obvious there, and it looks like the other two are Cape cormorants. Now, what I like about this, well, any change in weather in any wildlife environment is it brings different mysteries and different points of investigation, different behaviors. Now, one thing, obviously, if it's nice and misty, who knows what lurks beneath the waters, what can just pop up. And there's not really an animal that can see better in mist than others, because mist is it's a physical particle. It's water vapor, and none of us, at least none of the animals we've ever been able to document, have X-ray vision to look through them. So that means that this mugginess is something that all animals will experience, even if they have better eyesight than us, which is the majority of the animal kingdom, if I'm being very honest. The eyesight of birds is excellent. They have a few adaptations to help them out, but none of them are going to help out in this misty weather. And none of our penguins are around. You can see that high tide. You saw that all the water was coming right up, covering that beach area. Anyway, like I said, after we look at those cormorants, we're going to head over to Tau, and here we are. A couple zeebies having a good old time. No mist to be seen here. And that's because Tau is not in the Western Cape. It's in Madikwe Game Reserve, quite close to, about 3 hours from Johannesburg, if that helps you out. Jean Gale, you say another sunny day here in Seattle. You just poured your 3rd cup of coffee. Goodness me, Jean. I don't know what to say. Today I discovered that I, in fact, cannot have more than 2 cups of coffee. I mean, 1 cup of coffee a day. Every time that second one happens, I just end up feeling ill. And you also tell everybody good morning and good evening. Bridget McKenney has made it. And you say hello, Trishala, and everyone. Welcome aboard, Bridget. Now, we were chatting a little bit about eyesight. We were talking about the eyesight of the birds and how different environmental factors can play a really important and really exciting role when you're out in the wild. If it's a sunny day, you can expect behavioral changes compared to if it's a rainy day, if it's cold compared to if it's hot, and that goes, across the board. There's some animals that you don't see too much change in, and equids, like these zebras and antelope, are one of those animals. And for them, sorry, I might have to cough. There we go. Excuse me. If you imagine that you're one of the animals that are, you're herbivorous, so you're constantly feeding, and the fact that you're herbivorous means that you've constantly got to feed. You've got to get as much nutrition out of your surroundings as possible, which means that you don't really have downtime. Some animals may look like they're having downtime, like impalas. They're lying down, but then if you look closely, you'll see that they're chewing cud because they're ruminants. Zebras are not, though. Zebras are hindgut fermenters, so no throwing up food and re-chewing it in their mouths like the ruminants do. So for them, life is pretty much the same, regardless of whether it's hot or cold. There'll be some subtle behavioral differences, like seeking out spots of shade. But other than that, things are pretty much the same. Carnivores, though, if it's really hot, you're pretty much going to see no movement from them. When it's cool, even those animals that you are used to expecting in the evenings or early mornings, crepuscular animals. You might see them out and about regardless. Even some nocturnal animals. There have been times when it's been really cold and overcast, and I've been out on a reserve and I've seen scrub hares. Now, scrub hares are nocturnal, but because the weather conditions allow them to kind of be out with not expending too much energy, not being too hot, and most importantly, the cloud cover and the low pressure system that was causing the bad weather essentially. Because of that, their primary predator would be out of the skies. So it meant they could go about freely. And I think that's a nice point because it reminds us that though animals do fill particular niches and are very well suited and adapted to fulfill those niches, if the conditions are right, they have a degree of resilience. In fact, most animals have quite a large degree of resilience. Now, I was so hoping some elephants would come down. But once these two zebras start to move off, we can head back to Stony Point. Kathy's got a nice question about dassies. Show exactly what we were looking at there. Ooh, so creepy. Yeah, we have the white-breasted cormorant and almost looks like a crowned cormorant there on the left. A little difficult to see. You can see the little flick just above it where the beak, the mandibles meet the face. Kind of just above their eye line, you can see a little flick. If you're wondering what that sea monster floating in the background is, that's just some kelp. I wonder if we could just move back and have a look at the dassies again. Dassies are one of those animals that, if you're out in wild spaces in South Africa, it's not very easy to find them because they're very suited to a specific type of environment. I mean, they're called rock hyraxes as well. So that tells you you've got to have rocky outcrops for them to be found. Woo! That was quite a swipe. But here in the Western Cape, we see them quite a lot, even if you go to a beach. A lot of our beaches are quite rocky, and you'll see dassies just chilling on the beach exactly like they are right here. Now, where is your question, Kathy? There we go. You'd like to know, do dassies live in family groups? Are these guys all related? They do live in family groups. Both males and females look really, really similar. Mature males tend to have a bit of a thicker neck, but honestly, it is so difficult to tell. So difficult to tell. But they live in what we also call colonies, so not really, you don't have to use the word family group, because not all of them are directly related. The colonies are made up of several family groups. And then there's a dominant male, and he has a few females and their offspring. Usually those females are related, but they don't necessarily have to be sisters. Now, whether we're looking at a male or a female right now, I wouldn't be able to tell. But something tells me that was the male. Some innate feeling says that's the male. Off you go. What's quite interesting, so when females, so because there's several females that all quote unquote belong to that male. Ooh. Yay! Kathy, I'll complete that discussion in a moment, but I have to pause and just watch these elephants at King's Camp. I think I'm just going to be quiet for a few moments because this elephant is so close to the camera, we'll really be able to hear it swishing around. Oh, off it goes. Oh, sorry. Oh, it's a buffalo in the middle of them all too. Don't you just love the position of this camera? Now, I wonder if any of you noticed that elephant that was very close to the camp. As it walked away, it looked like it had pulled off its nail. I think it was on the back foot. See if we can have a closer look if it pops up again. But no, all the ellies are gone, or going. I'm betting that the buffalo sitting in the middle was not very encouraging for them. If this were a bachelor herd or even just one big bull, he would have not felt anything with that buffalo being in the middle. Not that the buffalo is being intimidating in any way whatsoever. Look at you, you're just resting, chilling. But breeding herds tend to be a lot more cautious. And that's expected because breeding herds, as the name implies, means that they have youngsters in tow. So they are going to be a little bit more reactive. I'm speaking in generalities here. When it comes to elephants, it's always best to handle them with caution. It's kind of like if you meet somebody of a completely different culture to you, you're not sure if something may be offensive because you're not the same. And it's the same when you're with elephants or any animal for that matter. You've got to make sure your movements are careful and calm and not secretive, not in any way trying to be hidden. Because you never know what could offend them at that point. Offend is a bad word, actually. What could trigger them to have a reaction. Aussie Jan 2 has made it as well. You and your coffee, of course. Welcome aboard, Aussie Jan 2. We started off looking at some dussies, then some zebras. Now we're at King's Camp, where there were some ellies and this lone buffalo bull, just enjoying life. And you can also see a few patches on his body. Those, I mean, if he looked at us, you would also see patches on his face. Now that's one of the markers that we use for whether it's an old buffalo or a mature buffalo, because the strongest and maturest buffaloes, they tend to be the dominant males in the group. Oh, hello, warthog. Is that a warthog? Yes. Come on, come have a drink. But older bulls, they don't get pushed out of the herd. Rather, what happens is, because they're on the other side of the hill now, they've lost condition, so they still follow the herd around, but they tend to be a little bit slower, and they almost, it seems, want to take it a little more easily. They don't have to keep anybody in line, they don't have to defend their position anymore, so they can just kind of chill. And eventually the distance between them and their herd can get greater and greater and greater. And that's when we end up with old, oftentimes grumpy, lone buffalo bulls. Here come the warties. Warthogs are always a lovely sighting to have. And the thing with the cameras is that we can actually watch them and have a prolonged sighting with the warthogs. When you're there in person, as soon as a warthog sees you, you may be lucky, you have a few seconds where they stop and stare at you, but then they run off. They're very, very reactive. Obviously, it depends. All animals, and even individual animals, not just as a species, they have a different range of what is comfortable and what feels threatening. Now, within that range, whether it's, or let's say for warthogs, in my experience, it's pretty long, maybe about 20 meters. But that doesn't mean that when I drive my vehicle 19 meters from them that they're going to feel threatened. It just means that I'm going to get a reaction from them if I get that much closer. So within that space of comfortability for them, there's other spots. So it's divided then into what's a little uncomfortable, what is threatening, and what is attack mode. And for different animals it's different, and for different individuals, like I said, it's different. Sometimes, especially, you see it with animals who have had interactions with humans, or had a bad interaction with another species, or maybe they're injured. Then they tend to need a larger space. Whereas if you're with some really, really relaxed elephants, or even very, very relaxed buffalo herds, once you drive and you park your car and you just wait for them, they can come very close. They can come within 2 meters of the vehicle. I've had one little baby Ellie almost try to touch me, just reached out its trunk and could almost touch me. Depends on a lot of things what that distance is, and that's why it's extra important to be cautious and figure out what that is for each animal. And you do that by kind of testing. This buffalo bull looks as if he's just looking off in the distance. And really, that's how they spend a lot of their lives. These Daga boys. Oh my goodness. Thankfully, you are back with me. For a moment, I wasn't getting any questions. Now they've all come through. Grumpy old man, you see, grumpy old bull. Exactly. And I suppose very much like a grumpy old man, they're not always grumpy. It's just that they can be grumpier than not grumpy. And sometimes can be very sweet. Somebody has asked, what's the average age of breeding bulls? So, buffalo bulls, they reach sexual maturity around 3 years old, but they still need time to become dominant. So, the whole point of dominance, and there isn't really a strict dominance hierarchy when it comes to buffaloes, but there's still going to be individuals that are more dominant than others. And they're going to have to fight to maintain those positions, or at the very least, they're going to have to display to maintain those positions. So that means even though a buffalo bull can reach maturity at about 3 years old, sexual maturity, he still needs time to assert some level of dominance so that he can actually become appealing to the cows. And that takes several more years. So only at about 8 years old or so would they actually be able to mate. And that's also quite a general idea, and it's something that we have for most mammals. We say, okay, they reach sexual maturity at then, but then they need to attain some kind of dominance or get a territory in other mammals' cases, and so that takes time. But we also know that all animals are opportunists. So if there is a female in estrus and none of the dominant bulls are around, is a 5-year-old Cape Buffalo bull going to try his luck and might be able to do it? Definitely. It's just far less likely. These warthogs looked like they were eyeing out. They definitely saw the buffalo bull. I saw the one giving it a bit of a stare down, but I think they're going to come to the water to drink. At least I hope they will, but I'm not sure. With the bull constantly flicking his tail, I think it might push the warthogs off. We'll just have to see. Kaoru is asking, this one is a dagga boy, isn't it? Yes, he is. He is a dagga boy. Now, the word dagga or dagga boy comes from the word for mud, which is dagga. In fact, my grandfather used to use that word a lot. So I used to really, really not like wearing shoes, and I still don't. And so I used to run around barefoot for a long, long time. I still do. I was rock pool investigating on Sunday, and my parents called, and I was chatting to them, and my dad was like, I'll get you aqua shoes so that you can have shoes to walk around on the beach and the rocks. And I was like, no, I don't want shoes for that. Anyway, as a child, I used to then get lots of mud on my feet, and then my grandfather used to be like, all the dagga. So it means mud, and the reason it's used for these lone buffalo bulls is that so often they wallow, and they pick up mud, and it's on their bodies. Sometimes they even horn the mud, so they get mud all over them, particularly on the horns as well. And they chill in mud, so the word or the name dagga boys was used for them. And that's interesting. So I didn't get your name, the one that was asking about breeding bulls, but you were saying it's similar to moose here in Canada. Now, if you don't know, moose, seeing moose is one of my favorite, or on my bucket list. I need to see a moose. In come the illies. April Owl, you say the warthogs seem less nervous about the buffalo compared to the elephants. 100%. The buffalo, they could see it for some time, they could see it wasn't reacting to them, but once they get closer, I think the sound of him flicking and moving would have caused them to be a little nervous, but the elephants just barreled through. And that's enough to make anybody nervous, really. Just to wrap up the moose thing, so you were saying that 7 to 8 is the average breeding age for moose, and cows can breed until 15, 17. So, though the breeding age for buffalo bulls will begin at about 8 years old, it will continue through their life. But the difference is that a 25-year-old buffalo bull, which is basically the upper limit for a buffalo bull's longevity in the wild, theoretically up until that age he can still reproduce, and so can cows. But the problem is that if you're a Duggar boy, maybe you're in your late teens, early 20s at this point, you've dropped off your peak, you're starting to get a little slower, you're trailing the herd. Ooh, that means that mating opportunities become less and less, but they can still theoretically mate up until that ripe old age of 25 or thereabouts. Nothing is disturbing this buffalo bull. Nothing. And that is the life. That is the life of a grumpy old bull, like Grumpy Old Man says. I must say, King's Camp is happening today. That shouting that you're hearing in the background, those are the elephants. Sounds like an internal dispute. I was just about to say, can we move out to have a look around? Perfect timing. It looks like the elephants, yeah, elephants have moved off now. So how about we head over to Tembe. Oh, lovely. We have a grey heron. Just a little bit of preening. Now, when we just started off our time together, I said to you that animals very much start their day just like us, and they end their day just like us too. Though the way that we do it might be modernized, we still have the same need, and that is to take care of our bodies. Because if we don't take care of our bodies, if we don't have a shower, if we don't wash ourselves, it means that bacteria and pests can take hold, and that only means that we will deteriorate. And that's the same for any other animal. Wake up in the morning, if they are a diurnal animal, but whenever they wake up, first thing they do is they'll stretch, they'll try to get warm, whether that means stretching or sitting in the sun. They'll start to groom themselves, make sure everything's in order, and for birds this is especially important because all those feathers really need to be in perfect condition. They need to be correctly aligned in order for them to be able to create lift effectively. Not only that, if it's breeding time, then maybe they need to make sure that they're extra pretty too. So a lot of effort goes in. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you heard that, but some hardy-does just flew over my roof, riding their broomsticks, no doubt. They really shriek. So, just like us, wake up, try to get some energy into you, whether that's warming yourself up. Then you're going to clean yourself, just like the birds do. Then you're going to go out and find yourself a meal. Now, for most of us, after we find ourselves a meal, we go to work. But for the animals, work is continuously finding meals because there aren't any guarantees. And that's why grooming is also really, really important, because how well they groom, how well they can take care of their bodies, has effects on their survival. And I don't just mean for a bird being able to fly away if a predator comes, yes, if that's an obvious one, but also if there is something off with the way that their feathers are aligning in their sheets, and they can't quite stab their prey in the same way, all of that makes a difference. So they have to make sure they're in tip-top shape. Other things like mites and other pests that can actually deteriorate feathers, those need to be cleaned too. And when birds, excuse me, when birds are in their bird baths, giving themselves a good tussle in the water there, that's really, really important for cleaning out pests. This one's having a very good clean too. And then of course, once the day is ended, you know that we're moving into winter, which means that, oh, well, we are, well, almost in winter, but we're technically in autumn at the moment. But like I've said to you, in southern Africa, we don't really, autumn and spring are kind of not really there. But it's getting colder, day lengths are getting shorter. So basically at this time, these are the last strongest rays of sun. After this, it's going to get cool very quickly. So this heron is winding down its day. After this, it'll find a nice place to roost, sometimes with other herons of different species, and it'll call it a night. So this camera at Tembe had to be changed over the weekend. How interesting. Kirst just sent me a picture. Because bees had made a home inside the camera. Aww, that's very sweet, I think. Rolling Trouble, you say birds have no coffee, and I can detect your tone when you say this, Rolling Trouble. Yes, birds unfortunately have no coffee. But hey, if you're a heron, grab yourself a nice raw fish. That's as good as coffee from what I've heard from my heron buddies. Looks like something's caught its eye. Oh, and we have Preya. Hi, Preya. You say you're a microbiology ecology student in Canada. We're so happy to have you on board. We hope that you'll teach us something. Wouldn't that be fabulous? Once upon a time, I was an environmental science/biology student, but it was a long time ago now. Did I just see a jacana over on the side there? I think we did see one hopping about. Zygo just said the bubbling casinos are calling in the background. Yes, they are. It's really nice to hear amphibians out and about. And I see you've been spotting a few on the cameras too. And oh my goodness, it took me way too long to figure out what that was, because I thought that animal was facing us, but it is in fact the backside of an impala? Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't have a name again, but this person wanted to know what would be the coolest temperature the birds can handle. I wouldn't be able to say. I don't know what the coolest temperature they'll be able to handle is, but we do know, for example, we know that birds are warm-blooded and that they're endothermic, so it means that they can produce their own warmth, which means that if the temperatures go below freezing, they're still going to be fine. The issue with freezing temperatures is that we know that liquids or water expands when it's frozen. So imagine all your blood cells are filled with parts of water. And once those freeze, they can burst the cell wall. And of course, that's not a great thing. So as long as an animal can maintain its body temperature despite what's happening outside of their body, all is good, and that's not a problem. And this is not just for animals, by the way. The same applies for plants. Plants also have cells. They also have cell walls. They're just made up of something a little bit different. But plants have quite an ingenious way of making sure that they can maintain some heat. And if you've ever seen a thermal camera move through the bush at night or any wild space, but I've seen it. We used to have thermal cameras, and we would, look at what's happening. And inevitably, you're going to be filming trees. And something I didn't expect was to see warmth emanating from the trunks. Or we're at Oliphant's River and we have a girdled lizard just chilling in the crack. Very nice. Yes, let's lower that buzz. This is quite interesting. So we're looking at an ectothermic animal, one that adjusts or can only adjust its internal temperature based on what's happening outside of it. And a way to combat this, if you're not a plant, so sorry, that's what I was talking about, plants. So plants have essentially a chemical that acts as antifreeze that it can pump through itself, particularly those plants that are evergreens, so that don't drop their leaves in winter, so they're surviving during winter. Fully leaved, they pump antifreeze-like chemicals into their structures that prevents it from freezing, because if it does, it'll burst those cell walls. But animals, with a few exceptions, don't produce antifreeze in their blood to help them along. So another way to get over it, well, the one way to avoid this is to be able to be endothermic or warm-blooded. That's a really easy way, in my opinion, because you're just born that way. Evolutionary-wise, not so easy. But if you're ectothermic, like this girdled lizard, and many reptiles, you've got to deal with it a different way. And often it means that they will remain inactive for a period when temperatures are too cold. But here in Southern Africa, to come back actually to the bird question, here in Southern Africa, temperatures really don't get that bad in terms of cold for it to affect the physiology of an animal very badly. And when it comes to birds specifically, they tend to have a higher average temperature than mammals. So they're gonna be just fine. I'm not sure what the limit of that is. I'm not sure it's been tested, and I don't think it would actually be experienced here in Southern Africa. In those areas where it does snow, like on mountaintops, or maybe where it gets really cold, like in the Karoo, you're not going to see tons of birds. They're going to simply move or migrate, which is another great behavioral option for animals trying to avoid any kind of severe weather. Those were some really nice discussions, everybody. Thank you. Already our time is up. I hope that you will continue to watch the cameras, see what's going on, give yourself a little more time in the African bush before you have to get back to your day, and it's always a pleasure to be your guide. Thank you so much for your questions and your comments. It was really nice to hear some new names, keep the community going, and we all get to love and enjoy and learn about wildlife together. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.